Well, look at that. A couple of the boys nominated for Gold Glove. Daulton, Varsho, Ernie, Clement. Where do they stack up, and can they bring home the gold?
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. As always, I'm Braden Iwasko. He's Carter First. You can find us on X or Twitter at Braden5Iwasko, at Carter First too, as well on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays. If you're new here on YouTube or subscribing anywhere else to us or following us anywhere else, make sure you go over to that YouTube anyway and subscribe. It really does help us out. You can hit the bell notifications. So you're always up to date on if we go live, if there's shorts, anything like that. You'll be the first to know about it as well. We have our new Locked On Blue Jays shop open. We got a couple cool designs. You can take a look. We got some like this, Davis Schneider, Ernie, Ernie Clement. We'll get into Ernie Clement. And our just logo ones as well. So make sure you guys go check out that. Link is in the description, as well as the Discord, the Locked On Blue Jays Discord, where we could talk all things Blue Jays all day long. So make sure you guys go and check that out as well. A lot to get into today. A lot to get into. A couple of the boys up for the Gold Gloves this year, Daulton Varsho and Ernie Clement. We're going to break it all down. Where do they rank up? How good of a season defensively did these guys have? And as well, we'll talk a little bit about the postseason in the third segment, as we always do, just going over some games and, what's going to be the eventual outcome of this World Series. Carter, just before we get going here, my guy, I guess overall feelings and thoughts with these two guys earning, the Gold Glove nominee.
The Daulton Varsho, is non-negotiable. That was the easiest gimme of all time. That was like me on the putting surface when I'm 3 feet away. Not necessarily Braden, but that's me out there. But Daulton Varsho, it's what he does best. He's just a premier defender. He's one of the best defenders in all baseball. This shouldn't really be a Gold Glove discussion. This should be more of a Platinum Glove discussion for Daulton Varsho. He is that good. That does not surprise me whatsoever. If you watch any sort of Toronto Blue Jays baseball this season, shouldn't surprise you at all. One that might surprise a little bit more people is the Ernie Clement nomination. We'll obviously debrief that a lot more as we get into the episode. But congrats to him, a guy that was very underappreciated in the infield for the Toronto Blue Jays. A lot of Blue Jays fans not really giving Ernie Clement his respect for what he was doing defensively and what he was at the bat. Ernie Clement on honestly both sides of the ball just made a lot of strides this season. I'm looking forward to what he can do in 2025. My kind of stance on this is, when you look back at Ross Atkins, I know where you always come back to just dumping on Ross Atkins, but might as well start this episode like that as well. You go back to this huge strategy of we're going to put defense first. Are we necessarily happy with what we got from the offense and only getting 2 gloves from a defense first strategy? I'm just going to throw it over to you. Are you happy with the Toronto Blue Jays having 2 Gold Gloves? That justify Ross Atkins' approach for defense first?
No, obviously. This is horrible. I mean, yeah, Daulton Varsho is a shoe-in. The Ernie Clement one for me, as much as I love Ernie Clement, this one was a little bit out of left field for me. I didn't necessarily expect this. At the end of the day, this season was a throwaway season. Nothing was going right. Everything was going wrong for this Toronto Blue Jays team. So I don't want to, go too hard on some of the players not earning these awards and not having the best season defensively, because there was a lot of changing. A lot of things were happening all over the diamond, with some guys switching positions, some guys going here, some guys getting traded. It's tough to put together a complete year defensively when you're not even playing the same position every day. And we saw a lot of that with the Toronto Blue Jays. So a little bit of it is, yes, not the best defensive year from a defensive first baseball team. But second of all, with the injury to Bo Bichette, the movement of some of these guys being traded, a lot of guys were having to shift where they were playing because we needed the more usual players, everyday players, to now move around the diamond and play other positions. And so that takes away a lot of things from you in talks with Gold Glove. So, but at the end of the day, no, I guess to answer your question, I'm not thrilled about it. But it's where we're at. We knew this wasn't a good season. We knew there wasn't going to be a ton of awards at the end of the line for this ball club in 2024. So yeah, I don't know, Carter. I mean, I'm guessing you have the same stance as me. I don't think you're too shocked, are you?
This was a little bit of a setup. I don't think you can fault Ross Atkins for not having a million Gold Glove winners because you can be a good defender and not win a Gold Glove. You've seen it before. These awards, again, there's a lot of focus on name value here. That's why like Ernie Clement shocking isn't necessarily due to his play. It's due to the other players that are nominated at third base for the AL. You have Jose Ramirez and Alex Bregman, Jose Ramirez should be a household name. Alex Bregman can be debatable. Ernie Clement not even close to on the name level basis as those two players. So in that aspect, I think a lot of these awards are a lot of name value that goes into it, obviously. So with Ross Atkins, when you look at the defense that was on the field and you look at his defensive first approach, the defense was pretty good for the Toronto Blue Jays. Again, second half of the season, you get young guys in. Stuff's going to happen. They're not going to be great defenders when you got 21, 22-year-olds out there. Things are going to go wrong. So again, I'm not taking too much away from him from that. But I guess if you're talking to Ross Atkins and the defensive approach, he was successful in providing good defense for the Toronto Blue Jays. It's just, the defense isn't the entire game of baseball, unfortunately, for the Blue Jays. If defense was the game of baseball, I think maybe Ross Atkins would have a couple World Series under his belt. But obviously, we are where we are. So with that, it's obviously you got to give their guys their flowers for winning these Gold Glove awards. They're nominated for a reason, but at the end of the day, you can't really fault other players for not winning these type of awards. So let's jump right into it. Let's start with the guy that we expected to be in these nominations, Daulton Varsho.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's pretty crazy to think that there's even a debate. I know at the end of the day, we'll go over, how we compare. In the second segment, we'll go over how everybody compares to each other, the different nominees, and who will take it home. But let's focus in on Daulton Varsho. I mean, it seems like the Blue Jays always strike gold with their center fielders. I mean, I don't know if you at the start of the season could call Daulton Varsho our center fielder, but now you absolutely can. He was electric. Obviously, he's established himself as one of the best defensive outfielders in the game, and not just from the Toronto Blue Jays. Obviously, 28 years old, and MLB's second best fielding run value at plus 17. He leads all players in defensive runs saved at 29 as well. He just looks electric, dude. I know, I don't have all of the defensive stats here. I know you have them, and we'll get into those right away. But just as an overall, Carter, I mean, Daulton Varsho does everything defensively at an elite level. Daulton Varsho is put in the 1 percentile or the 99th percentile in defense because he is just that good. Tracking balls down, knowing when to dive, when to, throw his body out into the air. He puts it all on the line. And yes, we're talking about how great Daulton Varsho is. We understand that there is the batting aspect of this as well, but we're talking about the Gold Glove and just defensively how solid and steady they are. Daulton Varsho makes plays that no other baseball player can seem to make. And at the end of the day, I mean, we'll get into Ernie Clement and what he can do on the defensive side of the ball as well. But Carter, I look throughout the league, and I mean, Daulton Varsho is a highlight machine. Every night you could pull a clip from the game that Daulton Varsho made a jumping catch at the wall or a head first dive. He's just electric. And that's not even, taking into consideration just his speed and the routes he takes to get balls. That is in a whole nother conversation in itself.
I think that's what makes Daulton Varsho show so good is that his reaction time is off the charts, and he always takes the most efficient route to the ball. You're never going to see this guy take a wrong step off the rip, or you're never going to see him kind of like do a zigzag on his route to the ball. It's a straight line. It's the most efficient way to do it, and that's why he's one of the best outfielders in all of baseball. I can't believe when you talk Daulton Varsho that he has not gotten a Gold Glove in his career, because he has been in the Platinum Glove conversation for the last few years. He should be in the Gold Glove conversation for honestly every single year that he's been in the MLB. But the problem with Daulton Varsho is that, and these awards, is that a lot of the time that these awards are center field, right field, left field, and Daulton Varsho plays center field, left field, right field throughout his baseball career. He's caught obviously in his career as well. So obviously they added the Gold Glove utility man, but with Daulton Varsho only playing the outfield this year, it's a lot harder to get a center field award when you're only playing 50, 60 games at center field. But this year for Daulton Varsho, I think this could be finally the year that he does get that Gold Glove award, because he did get games in, and that was due to Kevin Kiermaier being moved, obviously, to Los Angeles Dodgers. Before, when Kevin Kiermaier was playing, wasn't playing every single game, but he was taking a lot of those center field starts away from Daulton Varsho, sliding him over to left field. So when we look at the games, as I'll get into in the second segment, comparing them to Jaren Duran and Jake Myers, the games weren't necessarily there in the past for Daulton Varsho. They are there now. And when you look at the stats to back it up, as we'll get into, like Braden said, defensive run save leader in the MLB, outs above average, was at 17. That's most among the nominations as well. When you look at the stats, you use the eye test. You can use whatever you want with Daulton Varsho. It's all going to tell you that he is one of the best outfielders in all of baseball.
Yeah, and you know what? We could talk about Daulton Varsho for, until we were blue in the face. But at the end of the day, we just both believe that he's the best defensive player probably in baseball right now. And you know what? I think we've had these conversations about Daulton Varsho, so that may be why it seems stale to all of us. We're just expecting this from him. But a guy maybe we weren't expecting this from was, of course, Ernie Clement. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. I was just shocked. And again, like you said, not so much in the fact of what he does on the field. It's more so just the name value and who he's going up against. But let's talk about Ernie Clement a little bit and some of his stats this season. Ernie Clement recorded 10 defensive run saves as a third baseman, despite playing only 661 innings at that position. He finished with a 2.2 defensive WAR overall, tying for sixth best in the MLB. An absolutely great defensive, under the radar, great defensive season from Ernie Clement. And I think at the end of the day, Carter, we'll talk about this, but he might still not get the recognition that he deserves for being one of evidently the best defensive players in the league.
That's why it was nice to see my boy Ernie Clement being amongst the stars and Jose Ramirez and Alex Bregman. Getting a little bit of that name recognition that I love to see from one of our Toronto Blue Jays boys. There's a guy that, again, sort of like the Daulton Varsho of the infield. You can put him anywhere on the diamond, and he's going to be effective at that position. Played a lot of his reps at third base. That's why he got nominated as a third base nominee for the Gold Glove. But yeah, a guy that you didn't necessarily from the eye test see a lot of diving plays from Ernie Clement. When you looked at Ernie Clement, you saw the range, you saw how he could get to pretty much every ball, and you saw a lot of barehanded plays. You saw almost you're gonna like this, maybe not the comparison, but this is the Josh Donaldson barehanded plays at third base kind of bring me back to that time with Ernie Clement. The sidearm delivery, just love to see that too. More of just a fun player to watch, a smooth player, just a natural athlete out there for Ernie Clement. So does he win this award? We'll get into it. The name recognition, stuff like that is obviously going to be a factor, but it's nice to see our guy, Blue Jays representative, being up there with the likes of Jose Ramirez and Alex Bregman.
Yeah, and I don't want to throw this comparison because obviously the bat is a very different aspect of the game, but talking defensively, for a guy you're paying absolutely nothing to in comparison to the guy that everybody wanted to bring back in Matt Chapman, I mean, it's not that far of a leap defensively or a big enough deal of a leap defensively to justify the money that was spent on a guy like Matt Chapman. So hat tips to Ernie Clement for sort of proving everybody wrong that the Blue Jays didn't have somebody that can go out there and play very, very quality third base. And so that was a great thing to see from him as well this season, Carter.
Yeah, he's sixth in defensive WAR in all of baseball. That does it right there. If you're looking at Ernie Clement, you're making an argument if this guy is effective as an MLB, kind of expanding from a Gold Glove position. He's playing Gold Glove caliber defense, and he was hitting a clip at 270. Obviously, you want the on base, the walks to get there, but this guy's a bat on ball guy. He's going to be able to put contact on the ball a lot of times when he's at the plate, so he can definitely be an effective piece for your baseball team. So with Ernie Clement, I think the sky's the limit for next year, and hopefully we can just see the development continue for a guy that is fairly easily as a fan favorite for the Toronto Blue Jays organization.
All right, I think it's about time we get into how we think these two will fare in the competition of the Gold Glove Award. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. We'll compare them to the other guys that were nominated, and then we'll choose who we think will win. Will Daulton Varsho really bring it in this season? Or will Ernie Clement, out of nowhere steal the Gold Glove from two strong veteran players? We will see coming up. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. I always talk about FanDuel. I might be the biggest fan of this app in the world because I have been winning a lot of money lately, and it's all thanks to their live same game parlays. When it's the middle of the game, I can just go in and choose a bet to place. I love to watch the trends and how things are going, and the live bets let me do that. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. I'm telling you, It's free money in your pocket. You might as well go and take advantage of this. Trust me, I did. I almost tried to log in on Carter's to get his. It was that good of a deal. So make sure you guys go and claim that. That's at fanduel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. So, Carter, we talked about in the last segment a little just background on the two players that have been nominated for Gold Gloves from the Toronto Blue Jays, and Ernie Clement and Daulton Varsho. But let's talk about what kind of realistic shot they have. And when I look at the third base position, let's start with Ernie Clement, because I think he's going to be the big, debatable one here. He's going up against Alex Bregman and Jose Ramirez, two very, very solid players. And of course, with Matt Chapman winning a ton of Gold Gloves before he moved over to the NL in the last offseason, it sort of opened the door for some other players. Obviously, Alex Bregman and Jose Ramirez, two of the baseball's biggest names. But they've both never won a Gold Glove before. The two tied in defensive run saves at +6 this past season, while Bregman +6 edged out Ramirez +3 in outs above average. Ernie Clement, like I said, 10 defensive runs saved as a third baseman, despite the lack of innings, and he finished with a 2.2 defensive WAR for sixth best in the MLB. So it is a little bit tough to decide who is going to win this one, because the stats are all over the map, right? Ernie Clement doesn't have the innings, and that might really hurt him there. But at the end of the day, you look at in the innings he's provided, he's given you the sixth best defense in all of baseball. So how does that now compare to two guys who are playing there as your everyday third baseman, Carter?
See, and that's the problem when we talk about these awards. When we just go over the games played at third base, Alex Bregman has played 142, Jose Ramirez 126, Ernie Clement 96. So that is 46 games less than Alex Bregman at third base. There's got to be a little bit of merit that you do hold in that. The assists, the putouts, you got to be making the plays day in and day out. But again, you got to have some merit for the efficiency as well. When you look at the flashy plays, you look at the plays that aren't necessarily the easiest to make. Because again, MLB scoring, when you have a lot of these plays that are the tougher plays, when you look at like a diving play or a play where you might have to do a slide or things like that, a lot of the time those are scored as base hits. So that's not going to be an error a lot of the time for some of these players. So when you look at defensive run saved, you look at some of these metrics, that's how you can tell who is really changing the game of baseball. You look at WAR, as we talked about with Ernie Clement, 6th in all of baseball. You can tell he is helping his baseball team win games. He's making big plays in big situations, and he's starting to get his recognition for it. How do you say that word? Recognition.
There you go. Yeah.
There we go. Holy. All right. So just going over like some of these stats between Ernie Clement, Jose Ramirez, and Alex Bregman. When you look at errors, they're all very similar. 10 errors for Bregman, 10 errors for Ernie Clement. Again, when you look at games played, it doesn't necessarily bode well for Ernie Clement in this scenario. Jose Ramirez at 9. Double plays turned as a third baseman. Again, how much merit are you putting into this? But just a cool stat to present here. 23 for both Ramirez and Bregman, 16 for Clement. Defensive runs saved at third base, you had 10 for Ernie Clement, and then you have 6 for both Ramirez and Bregman. So you see that, obviously, Ernie Clement making some big plays there, making some of the flashier plays that Jose Ramirez and Alex Bregman aren't making. And then you have the third base fielding percentage, Jose Ramirez, 971, Ernie Clement, 954. And apparently I forgot to get Alex Bregman, so I'll get that as I throw it over to you. But overall, the stats, these metrics, I got just a few of them. Pretty mixed up here. You don't really have a clear outlier winner as you do, as we're going to talk about Daulton Varsho, obviously, after this. I think that one's more of an easier one to decide. Third base, I think it's kind of open. I looked at some people making their predictions. I saw a lot of Alex Bregman just due to the games, due to name value. Saw a couple flyers on Ernie Clement. That's what it seemed like, though. It seemed like Ernie Clement was not the front runner to win this award. It was more so the bigger name value players in Jose Ramirez and Alex Bregman. But Braden, after the stats, we kind of broke it down a little bit here. Who do you have as winning the third base Gold Glove?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, Ernie Clement being thrown in here is great. Getting in the nomination is fantastic. At the end of the day, Carter, it is. It's about the inning. It's about the longevity. It's about being able to play there day in and day out and make those plays that save your team. And yes, Ernie Clement did that, but only for 90-some games. And that just isn't – that's half a season, Carter. And you have to be able to do that, like I said, day in and day out. And Alex Bregman, he deserves one, man. He really does. I mean, even if you just don't look at this season specifically, he has been a great third baseman his entire career. And at the end of the day, with Matt Chapman leaving, opening the door a little bit for these two guys or these three guys. It to me, it has to be Alex Bregman. I got to be realistic. I love Ernie Clement, and I would love to see him come away with this award. And there's always a possibility that he will, because the defensive stuff is a little bit more subjective. But at the end of the day, I just can't see this going to Ernie. I think it's going to Alex Bregman for sure.
Yeah, when we look at the fielding percentage for Alex Bregman, just edges out Jose Ramirez at 972, Ernie Clement being at 954. So Ernie Clement is the last one in that stat category for third baseman. I don't necessarily see it for Ernie Clement. Yeah, you just don't have the games there. You don't have the overall stats to back it up. The errors is one thing that I'm going to look at, and you look at obviously the sample size. When you get 96 games, you're playing less games, you have more errors. The fielding percentage isn't necessarily there. It is nice to make the flashy plays, but you definitely want to make the routine ones as well. I do remember just from the eye test, multiple games where Ernie Clement had some bad errors on some pretty routine balls. So nice to get some recognition. Definitely was a very good defender, but I don't necessarily think that it is Ernie Clement's year to win this Gold Glove.
Yeah, tough look, right? You get nominated, and then you possibly get the letdown of not winning. But I think for him, he's got to take it away as, hey, this is something to build upon, right? For next season. I've shown that I am a more than capable third baseman. And if, like you said, if he can bring up the walks and get that on base percentage a little bit higher, I mean, I think you're looking at a very, solid place for Ernie Clement to be playing next year, barring any offseason moves that bring in a third baseman. But Carter, let's get into the man of the hour, the guy who I think has the best shot at winning an award this season. Obviously, after what we just talked about with Ernie Clement, let's get into Daulton Varsho. Although he doesn't have a Gold Glove award yet, Daulton Varsho is one of the best defensive outfielders in the game. I mean, it's above and beyond anything else. 28 years old, posted MLB's second best fielding run value at +17, while leading all players in defensive runs saved at 29. And he's going up against Jarren Duran of the Red Sox and Jake Meyers of the Astros. And to be honest with you, Carter, I think it's between two guys. It's Daulton Varsho and it's Jarren Duran. It's going to be a toss-up not a toss-up, I shouldn't say that, but that's where the conversation is going to be between the two. Jarren Duran wasn't far behind Varsho, ranking second in the majors with 23 defensive run saves, leading the MLB in outfield assists at 12 and recording a fielding run value of +12 during the breakout season for this Red Sox team. Meyers also had an impressive showing, 2024, placing second among all AL center fielders with a +14 outs above average. So don't get me wrong, he's in the conversation. But everywhere that I have seen placing Daulton Varsho, I mean, I think it's a unanimous decision that Daulton Varsho will take this, but I think at the end of the day, Jarren Duran has that close second, stealing some votes. You never know what could happen. Are you sort of in the same ballpark as me here with Daulton Varsho going up against who I think is just Jarren Duran?
Yeah, I kind of broke down the stats between the three of them, and yet Jarren Duran and Daulton Varsho are just kind of in their old worlds when it comes to the center field position in the MLB. Again, Jake Meyers had a very good year. Not trying to take anything away from him, but I think you do have two players that do stand alone when you're talking about the center fielder Gold Glove for this season. Just again, two guys that just had unbelievable years. Daulton Varsho leading the league in defensive runs saved. Jarren Duran leading the outfielders in outfield assists. So a very good arm in Jarren Duran. Just guys that do things very well. Daulton Varsho tracks the ball well, has a very good glove. Jarren Duran, a very fast guy, a little bit quicker than Daulton Varsho, and obviously has a cannon of an arm. So when you're looking at the fielding aspect of it, I guess you got to give it to Daulton Varsho with maybe tracking balls, taking better tracks of the ball. Jarren Duran can kind of make up for this reaction time in the track just by being faster. So again, when you look at the range between these two players, fairly similar. You got to give Jarren Duran obviously his props with the arm. But you look at some of the flashy plays, Jarren Duran stealing home runs, Daulton Varsho's down all over the baseball diamond. This award could be very close. I think I'm trying not to use my bias as a Toronto Blue Jays fan, but even with that, I have a very hard time believing that's not Daulton Varsho winning this award this year. When we break down the stats, I'm going to quickly get into it here. When you look at the center field of your games played, this is the only reason why, for me, the Jake Meyers thing could have some validity. Is because you have 144 games for Jake Meyers, 105 for Jarren Duran, you have 94 for Daulton Varsho. Again, you do have a big discrepancy there. But again, when you look at the stats, the underlying metrics for these players, I have Duran and Varsho just exceeding Meyers by a great total. So I think the games played, the 40 games, doesn't necessarily matter in this scenario. When you look at their errors, they both only had one in center field. Defensive runs saved, Varsho 29. You said it, first in the MLB. Jarren Duran second in the MLB with 23. Pretty big gap, those 6 defensive runs saved. Definitely can't kind of sweep that under the rug. Center field fielding value, Daulton Varsho at 17, Jarren Duran at 12. Center field assists, Jarren Duran at 8, 12 just in, again, Jarren Duran plays other positions in the infield as well, so we had 12 on the year, but 8 at center field, Daulton Varsho at 2 at center field. Then the fielding percentage, Jarren Duran just squeezing it out at 996 compared to 995. These are both very good players. Again, for me, I have Daulton Varsho just barely squeaking it out just due to the fielding run values and some of those metrics, but if Jarren Duran does win this award, I think it would be a Daulton Varsho snub, but not one of the worst snubs I would have ever seen.
Yeah, and to be fair, we talked about the not getting the games in. The difference is I don't see that much of a difference when you put somebody at left field or center field, or if you put somebody, comparing somebody that plays second base or shortstop or third base. I think there's a big difference in playing those positions in comparison to the outfield, where Daulton Varsho, doesn't matter where he's played, if it's left field, right field, center field, he has done the same thing. He is running down balls. He's making exceptional plays. And he's a platinum glove, dude. He should be getting this award. It is going to be crazy. But so he's easily my pick at the end of the day. I think Jarren Duran is a good competitor, and I think it still will be a little bit of a close one, but I think Daulton Varsho gets this 100% of the time.
See, for me, these guys are close enough that it could come down to things that are just outside the game of baseball. It could come down to the name value, could come down to the team successes. Again, when you look at the Jays and the Boston Red Sox, not a lot of success with those two teams, so that's not as much in the equation. But it could just come down to, some biases, some little things that, again, you got to assume that these guys are taking a lot of what they're saying from the metrics and from the eye test, things like that. But a lot of these metrics, when you break them down, are very close. Some are just edging out in some other areas compared to others. So I think this could go either or. But yeah, I got Daulton Varsho, Jarren Duran, if it is him, not the worst case scenario. Jake Myers, just not really talking about. I feel like just kind of a disrespectful video to Jake Myers, but
yeah.
No due disrespect, but we're Blue Jays podcast for a reason. Got around with our boy.
Yeah, and I
jersey for nothing.
That's right. Yeah. No, 100%. We got to back our guy, and I don't think we're not being ridiculous about it. We're not saying that IKF should win the best defensive player of the or Gold Glove for third base when he played on the Blue Jays. We're not taking a crazy take here. In saying that, Carter, we want to talk about also some of the guys that got snubbed or could have possibly been at least in the conversation to get a nomination. We'll talk about that right at the beginning of the third segment. Then we'll get into obviously talking about sort of the back, just what's going on in the postseason yesterday. Of course, we want to keep you guys always updated on that as well. So we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back with more for you guys on the Gold Glove. And like I said, obviously the rest of the MLB postseason. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. I always talk about Game Time. It is my favorite place to buy my tickets because I know they have the best deals. I know they have great deals. I know that I can see the view from my seat, and I know exactly what seat I'm going to be getting, and that's why I love Game Time. Game Time has a new feature, Game Time Pick. Makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. They have their flash deals, save even more on exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. They have their all-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows you the upfront total with no surprise fees at checkout. That's a huge one for me. I cannot stand when I think I have a good deal on a ticket, then I get to the checkout and I realize it's an extra $40 or something stupid. They have the lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets and more with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed.
Today's episode is also sponsored by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They are the easiest and most exciting way to play fantasy sports because it's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you can pick more than or less than 2 to 6 players' stat projections and watch their winnings roll in. PrizePicks is very simple to play. I can make my picks and submit my entries in as little as 60 seconds. So for this one, I'm just going to kind of go over what you can pick on PrizePicks, because there's so much that you can dive into. My main 3 leagues are the NFL, the NHL, and the MLB. So I'm just going to go over some of the picks that I make on a regular basis. So for the MLB, you can go into strikeouts, you can go total bases, you can go home runs, you can go hits, just to name a few. In the NHL, you can go hits, you can go block shots, you can go obviously fantasy points, goalie saves. In the NFL, you can go rushing more than rushing yards, less than receiving yards, passing yards, quarterbacks, obviously rushing yards. You could do running back, receiving yards, you name it. You can mix and match a lot in PrizePicks, which is so nice because you can make bets that are a little bit more specific, ones that not necessarily everyone is riding. So you can really go do deep dives into the game and pick exact picks that you think are going to hit. So you can download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for first deposit matchup $2 and $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for first deposit matchup $2 and $100. PrizePicks, run your game.
Carter, let's get into it. I know you have your snubs who you thought should have been nominated or at least considered to be nominated. Before we get into talking about sort of what happened in the MLB postseason yesterday, Carter, what do you got for us for snubs?
One that just based off history, thought he might get another nomination here. Don't got too much to back it up other than the eye test. Jose Barrios, again, looked like he was a good fielder. Again, I don't have any metrics to back it up, but that's the way that I have Jose Barrios is. It's just how 2024 season went. There's nothing. You're not going to get any bones thrown to you as a Toronto Blue Jays fan. But the one big snub that I did have is Alejandro Kirk, especially with the way he was playing in the back half of the season. This guy is one of the best framers in all of baseball. The stats will tell you that. He was starting to throw runners out as well in the back half of the year, as we talked about on this podcast. And when you look at the nominations, I'm not necessarily saying Alejandro Kirk should have won this award, but he should have at least been in the nominations. So when you break it down for Alejandro Kirk, just compared, I guess I'll say who the nominations were as well. So you had Freddie Fermin from the Kansas City Royals, you had Jake Rogers from the Detroit Tigers, and then you also had Cal Raleigh from the Seattle Mariners. For me, Cal Raleigh is probably the winner here, and I'll get into why as we kind of break this down. But going into Alejandro Kirk, when you're looking at the metrics just on Baseball Savant, so when you look at caught stealing above average, Alejandro Kirk is in the 95th percentile. You look at framing, Alejandro Kirk is in the 93rd percentile. Going into it, you look at Cal Raleigh. He is in the 74th percentile in caught stealing. Framing, very good framer as well, 98th percentile. Then you have Freddie Fermin. You have 92nd percentile in blocks above average, caught stealing at 97th percentile, framing 39th percentile. That's the difference between Freddie Fermin and these players. I have these three as the guys that should have actually been nominated. Freddie Fermin, unbelievable arm. His caught stealing is best in the league, 45% compared to Alejandro Kirk is the next guy who would be on this list at 31%. And then Alejandro Kirk, Cal Raleigh, just very good at blocking the ball, very good at framing. Jake Rogers is my one that's kind of just thrown in here. I think a little bit of this is the Tyreek Skubal success. Obviously, you get that storyline there. I'm not going to completely discredit Jake Rogers. I think that'd be a little bit idiotic to say it's just because of Tyreek Skubal. But you go into the stats here as well. The blocks above average, 89th percentile, very good blocking as well. Caught stealing above average, 65th percentile. The framing's 91st percentile. Getting into some other stats as well. When you just look at the games played, Cal Raleigh just completely dominates this. When you look at catcher run value, Alejandro Kirk leads it 15, Cal Raleigh 14, Jake Rogers is at 12. Caught stealing, Cal Raleigh 32. So there's one for this metric. Cal Raleigh is at 32, Alejandro Kirk 27. These guys were getting ran on a little bit more, especially Alejandro Kirk at the start of the season. So this is why they have caught stealing metrics a little bit above the other two. Freddie Fermin at 17, Jake Rogers 13. Caught stealing rate, Jake Rogers at 25, not throwing runners out as effectively as the other players. Cal Raleigh at 28, Alejandro Kirk 31, and Freddie Fermin at 45. So these players have some strong suits. Everyone of these catchers are good defensively. Not saying Jake Rogers is a bad defensive catcher, but you look at the overwhelming metrics for Alejandro Kirk. You look at the framing as being one of the best in the league. You look at his blocks. I think with what he did in the second half of the season, I think it's an overlooked statistic not having Alejandro Kirk at least considered for a nomination for a Gold Glove.
Yeah, it was a bit of a slap in the face, and not to discredit Freddie Fermin or Jake Rogers. I think the debate is more so Alejandro Kirk and Cal Raleigh, and I think Cal Raleigh wins that. I really do. I think he was exceptional this season. But for Alejandro Kirk to not be nominated to me is just ludicrous. And it is in part to how the success of the Blue Jays went. If the Blue Jays are a bigger story, maybe Alejandro Kirk's name gets thrown in. But at the end of the day, you know what? These are Gold Glove nominations. We know that sometimes it's a popularity contest. We know how this works. And sometimes the Blue Jays don't get enough love because they are the only Canadian team. And I don't like throwing that out there too often, but it is a possibility of what happens here. I don't know, Carter. I mean, yeah, a couple guys. The Jose Barrios thing for me is sort of whatever. It's pitching. I don't care about Gold Gloves. I really don't. I don't even think there should be an award for that, but whatever.
Yeah, how often is a pitcher really getting a ground ball in a game? Like the sample size just isn't really there for me to really argue why a pitcher should or shouldn't get a Gold Glove award. And again, are we really worried about pitchers and their defensive metrics? They can be the worst fielders of all time. If they can pitch Cy Young numbers, I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. In saying that, Carter, that was some of the snubs. We did a whole lot on the Gold Gloves. Just a quick thing on the postseason here. Just a couple things from me here, Carter. So the New York Yankees take a 2-0 series lead against the Cleveland Guardians. And Carter, Cleveland had so many opportunities to drive in runs and score in this past game. And it was sort of sickening to watch. Like it seemed like every time they'd have two runners on or the bases juiced and they just wouldn't be able to cash in runs. Or it would be a fly ball that would bring in one, but there wasn't that base hit that really, got the dugout going. It didn't fire up the players because there wasn't that like in the gap line drive that drove in a few. They just couldn't succeed with runners in scoring position. And that's a huge problem when playing a team like the Yankees. You have to take advantage of all of those situations that you were given. I really didn't think Garrett Cole was that exceptional tonight or yesterday. And yet he posted an okay line because the Cleveland Guardians just weren't able to take advantage when he was getting into those jams and struggling. I don't know, man. It was a frustrating game to watch.
Yeah, I got the Garrett Cole line right in front of me. Yeah, when you look at his stuff, just like it's serviceable because he only gave up 2 earned runs, but definitely didn't have exactly what you were looking for from Garrett Cole. 4 1/3 innings, 6 hits, 2 earned runs, 4 strikeouts, the 4 walks. You don't want to be putting free runners on in the playoffs. Don't really take advantage of it. When you have Rocchio dropping a fly or pop up, not even fly ball, pop up in the infield, it just puts a bad taste in your mouth. You give the Yankees a free run the first inning, and they just they don't give you the momentum back the rest of the game. Coming back from a 2-0 series deficit to the Yankees, I mean, like when you got Aaron Judge and Juan Soto on the other side, where all it really takes is one swing of the bat that can completely change the game. You're giving them a lot of opportunities to put them in those situations where they can change the game with one swing of the bat. So it's going to be an interesting road for them to come back on. And you looked at the Yankees bullpen, like you get 4 1/3 from Garrett Cole. You kind of get to him here. You want to get to him more, obviously. But then the rest of your offense, you get the Jose Ramirez run. And what was that? That was at the top of the 9th inning. Like it's just too little too late at that point.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And don't get me wrong, looking at that Yankees, lineup, they look exceptional. But you're right, the pitching staff is not good. Weaver's been great to say the least, but I mean, you really haven't seen the explosion from Aaron Judge that you would have thought. Yeah, he hits the home run in sort of a whatever situation. Yeah, and so you're just really not taking advantage of the possibility in front of you. And to be honest, watching this Yankees team over the past couple of games, I mean, if they go up against the Dodgers in the finals, I just don't know how they survive that.
To be fair with the Yankees, though, their starting pitching has been a lot better than what it was in the regular season. And when you look at the Dodgers, they don't really have the pitching right now either. They got a boatload of injuries over there. So it really comes down to the lineup. The Dodgers have way more depth. But again, when you look at lineups, the New York Mets beat the Philadelphia Phillies. I didn't have that in the cards whatsoever. So the on-paper stuff doesn't really matter at this point of the year. It's who hot, who's not, who's playing good baseball right now. Like I said in the couple episodes ago, Mark Vientos is one of the best hitters on the planet right now. And that just isn't a sentence that I ever thought I would be saying, especially in the year of 2024 when we're talking about the NLCS. So when you're talking about regular things, that kind of goes out the window right now. It's just who's playing good baseball. And it's going to come down to that when we talk about a winner of the World Series.
Yeah, that's very true. But in part of that, I think the Dodgers hitters are playing way better. The superstars are being their superstars. And I think that's the difference. When I look at Aaron Judge, he hasn't done what I've expected of him. And that's a lot of this Yankees lineup. It's not what I expected. Yeah, they've been getting the wins, but at the end of the day, they haven't been that they haven't filled the building with electricity like the Dodgers have. I mean, even the Mets at this point, for goodness sakes, like Francisco Lindor, even Pistol Pete has been better. not as expected. I think everybody expected him to have a pretty bad playoff run, and he's been pretty good so far. So in saying that, it's going to be an interesting sort of finish here, but I don't know, man. Anything else before we sort of kick out of here for the day?
Just this. It's just funny how it kind of turns around. Just at the end of the year, before obviously the Pistol Pete home run that sent him in the playoffs, Mets fans were calling for this guy's head. They're like, we don't want this guy in a 40-foot radius of our ball club. Like they didn't even want a re-signing. They wanted nothing to do with Pete Alonso. You get one home run, you have a good little bit of a playoff run here. It's amazing how things can change now. I think Pete Alonso is one of the most loved guys in New York right now. So it's funny how that works, but obviously congrats to him. Just a player that has been a power hitter and doing it at a very high level for a consistent amount of time. That's very hard to do in the MLB. So
Yeah.
a little bit, I guess, to end the episode, just flowers to Pete Alonso. Didn't necessarily think we'd end there, but let's end there.
Yeah, man. When the lights turn on, Pete Alonso shows up, the pistol. So good on him. Anyway, guys, just before we get out of here, we appreciate always that you make us your first listen. If you want to find a second listen, go check out Locked On MLB with host Paul Sullivan. Sully, our guy, has a great podcast on the entirety of the MLB, covering all the big storylines. We touch on it, but he'll cover them sort of more as a general sort of thing. So go check him out as well. Also check out our shop. Like I said, it's down in the description below. You can check that out. Find a bunch of cool shirts and sweaters, and I don't know, there's like a million things on there. Go take a look at that. Also join the Discord. Have a good one. We'll be back tomorrow.